Hello and welcome back, fellow page tours. Welcome to Spotlight Showing, where we spotlight and highlight indie projects. It includes books, movies, games, artists, anything indie you can think of. Give everyone a chance to kind of promote people that we enjoy reading or watching or listening to. I'm here today with Thomas and Alex. Thomas, can you give us an introduction?
How's it going? I'm Thomas J. Devens, author of Fall of Emros and Vermin of the Old Empire series, and an upcoming project that I'll probably mention at some point. Just gritty fantasy.
Nice. And Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm the author of Carpentry in the Elven Forest, which is a light-hearted comedy fantasy about a crazy quest.
It is very lighthearted, and it's a lot of it's. I haven't belly ached in a while reading something, but I definitely am belly aching reading Carpentry in the Elven Forest. So that's a success there.
You've got some groans and some exasperated sighing to come as well.
Yeah, it's funny because Thomas has the kind of the gritty fantasy, and Alex has the comedy. So we have a good contrast here. The different books. So good mixture here. So yeah, so we were talking before we started recording about, we thought we'd come on and promote certain books, and I thought I'll make a list of about 5 books that I've read in the past however many years, and before I knew it, my list was about 15 books. So, which we'll highlight a few of them, but before we get into kind of highlighting some projects, Thomas and Alex, can you tell us what you both have coming up, or what you're working on, or what can we look out for from you?
You can go first this time, Alex.
Go on then. I'm seriously writing 2 books at the moment. I've got about 6 or 7 ideas jotted down, but there's 2 that have taken shape. The first one is one of the characters from Carpentry in the Elven Forest, a troll called Thomas, who's the head of a village police force, is going to leave the police and become a private investigator in the troll capital city. And he's going to start investigating the murders of humans that have gone to the troll capital city to work. And he's going to be aided by a human psychic, so that's why it's going to be called Trolls and Tarot, a Thomas mystery. And the other book I'm currently writing is going to be another sort of adventure quest type book set in the comedy world again, where a race of humanoid insects known as praying mantics are going to mess around with the Dawn Chorus, which is the magical spark that makes all sentient creatures sentient every day. So they're going to alter the Dawn Chorus, and a drunk bard that Thomas will know well by the name of Felstrom Onderlute, because that's my D&D character, is going to solve the mystery with the help of a red cardinal bird called Father Crimson.
Nice.
Sounds great.
Yeah. What about you, Thomas?
I've got quite a few projects going on, maybe more than I should. I restarted writing the next Vermin of the Old Empire book, The Roustabouts. I was having some trouble with it and threw out about 20,000 words and started from the beginning. And now I'm about 9,000 words in, so it's steady. I'm also working on just started a pretty fun project I can't say much about, but I'm really excited about it. It's a sort of collaboration project, and I can't wait to have more done on that and talk more about it. But in the meantime, the biggest thing I've been working on lately, I'm just about finished up, and we'll be doing a cover reveal soon of A Payday and a Pint, which is the first issue of my Grimdark zine, which is just kind of like my usual style of kind of gritty fantasy, but it's just absurd and silly and influenced by old school tabletop RPGs. And that is going to be a serialized short story in a hand printed zine with an audiobook on cassette that
Wow.
I narrated and
Look at that. Wow. Cassette tape. Nice,
recorded,
nice.
and it's about an hour long. And then I know this is audio only, which is good because I didn't do the cover reveal yet, but this is basically the prototype of the zine. And yeah, I'm gonna start printing those out this weekend and folding them and stapling them and,
Wow.
spending hours and hours doing tedious shit. But it's a
So
labor
you
of love.
so you're actually going to produce them yourself. You're going to bind them
Yep.
and wow.
I'm going to have digital copies available, and that will be on itch.io, but that's and possibly my Ko-fi page or whatever, but that's it. I'm not gonna do Amazon or anything like that with this one. Um, and yeah, I'm gonna have physical copies. Right now, I'm gonna print 50 to start and see how that goes. And then I want to do at least an issue a year, possibly two. We'll see once I get the hang of it, how long it takes to go through the whole process.
So you bought all the equipment to bind all the books. Was that a pretty big investment, all the equipment?
I mean, it's just a paper cutter and a stapler and a printer. It's not like a tradition, like a full-on book binding with a spine. It's just a fold-over booklet, basically.
But it's super cool. That was really
Kind
neat.
of wanted to, because I used to do this shit all the time when I was a kid and still playing punk bands and stuff, making our own tapes, making a zine and everything. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna combine the two things that I really enjoyed doing.
Well, it's impressive. That's a lot of work. But it's a kind of selling cassettes out of the trunk of your car, back in the 80s, get
Yeah.
that's neat. That's really cool. Well, that's awesome. Looking forward to
Just
that.
need to get some bootleg boot bootleg Cabbage Patch dolls to go with it.
Yeah.
That was harder to say than it should have been.
Yeah. Well, nice. So, and of course, Thomas and Alex's links are down below in the podcast description, as they are in every episode. So check those out. And keep your eyes out for those projects coming up and reveals. So I guess we'll start with some indie books that we've enjoyed over the years, and I've enjoyed quite a few of them. I was surprised, but I kind of we try to remember things we've read, but looking at my list on Storygraph on books I've read, I remembered some really good gems that I hadn't read in a while. But we'll go ahead and start us off with a book called One Way by Jeff Lane. It's a thriller, time travel, a little bit of romance, but it's about a man and a woman who they have this tragedy happen, and lots of time travel back and forth, and this lots of tension. It's a fun one and done book. I think there was meant to be a second book, but I don't think we've gotten it yet. But it's just a really easy to read thriller that if you like time travel stories, I think you'd probably enjoy this one. But it's one of Jeff has written a few books. This is my favorite one that he's written, but a really good thriller if you're into thrillers or just time travel, or with a little bit of romance sprinkled in. Nothing that gets too far into the romance, but enough to make you give a shit about the characters, basically. So yeah, that's my first one that I wanted to mention.
I always worry with time travel because of paradoxes, where you get the endless loop paradox of, especially when you go back in time, that you get to the place, you have to go back in time, you do all the stuff, get to the place again, then another version of you has to go back in time, do all the stuff, get back to the place again. You end up with this endless loop paradox. I'm just like, I don't know how to write that.
Yeah, me either. I think with time travel stories, I think at some point if they try to explain some of that stuff, I just kind of I've got to the point now where it's like I just have to let it go and not overthink it, because I'll end up not enjoying the story and think, well, that doesn't make any sense. And that, what did he run into himself when he goes back in time? You know, it's just, there's just too many there's too many paradoxes out there. So I'm trying better about being just, okay, it doesn't make sense, but it's a fun story, so whatever.
Disassociation from the
Yeah.
science.
Yeah.
I'll go with one since you brought up time travel. I read this one last year, which was a novella, Yestermorrow by Fraser Armitage, which was not so much traditional time travel as like the things you wanted could change the past or the future, and then there were many consequences that went with it. And it was a great novella. It was like, had moments that were like, kind of had vibes of like an 80s action movie, but it also had a lot of heart, and had humor. It was everything about it. I loved that book and need to read more from him, but I'm very bad at making time to read, so eventually I will read more from Fraser Armitage. But in the meantime, that is an amazing novella that I recommend everyone check out.
Nice. I don't think I've heard of that one, so on the list.
Well, I'm going to go with a cheesy one to begin with, because it's actually Thomas's book, The Scroungers, which is also a novella, and it's really good. The characters are so brilliant. The setting is just a mishmash of people who are on the verge of exploding into another battle, because it's set after a big war. And you've got this town on the front line that's a melting pot of both sides from this war. So you always feel like anything could set it off to begin with, and then he throws in a murder investigation into it, and unlikely allies joining together to try and solve this murder or set of murders. And it was the audiobook as well, read by R.J. Bailey, who is an absolutely brilliant voice actor.
Yeah, he's amazing. I am still in awe of what he did with that. Everything he's done was, everything I've heard him narrate has been amazing.
Yeah, second the Scroungers. It's a Jose and I were talking on the last Friday conversation about it, how it's primed for an adaptation, because it's kind of what you would imagine happen after a big battle and everyone's dead and everyone's just like, why are we fighting? Like, you know, let's go have a beer.
Yeah.
Like, and of course something's going to go wrong, but as it usually does. So
now I'm just going to be spending the rest of this recording with a stupid grin on my face, red, and not knowing what to say. So thank you guys.
One of the other things I loved about it was the sheer panic in all the characters whenever anybody starts casting a spell. It's just this absolute panic of, oh shit, it's a spell user. Quick, shut him up. Shoot him, do something.
it's probably what I would do too. I mean,
It's a natural reaction, I would have thought.
like a walking nuclear weapon. You know, it's,
Smash a pint glass over his head.
Yeah.
there's always a.
You just don't come across it much in fantasy books, because there's always this, oh, it's magic. We accept magic. So it's fine. I mean, you know, in this one, it was everybody just suddenly stops what they're doing and panics.
The next one I mention is one that I think more people need to read. It's I've recommended this book a few times, but it's called Birthday Treat by Anthony Self. It is a story. It's a dystopian future, not so distant future story about this people who live in this oppressive, under the reign of this oppressive government. Who, on your birthday every year, if you're chosen, you can commit any crime you want to, and you are free to do anything you want. There's no punishment, and everything is televised. So it's like The Running Man, The Purge, and this dystopian future where if you don't commit a crime on your birthday and you're chosen for your birthday treat, then the government finds someone to hunt you down and kill you, and that's also televised. So you have to commit crimes, and it's this weird cycle that, you know, if you choose not to commit a crime, they'll hunt you down on like this reality TV show style and murder you. But if you do commit the crime, then you have to live with yourself and know that you've committed this crime against whoever you commit crimes. And it's, when I read it, I thought, this is like this like unrealistic dystopian future. And then a few years later, I thought, it's not so far off. I can kind of see this happening. So it's one of those where it's, you know, you read it and then in the future, it's like, well, you know, that could happen. So it's a great book. It's a great, again, another one-off. And it's a really funny story. He put a lot of time into building and explaining the government and how the different branches of government work and the internal components of it work. So it's a really fun book, and it has a great cover too. So go check
That's
that out.
on my list.
I read that one last year too. I had a much better year of reading last year than this one. But yeah, I loved that book, and he did a great job with the way he kind of like in between each chapter was the what's the word for it? But like when it brings in like social media posts and news articles and all that stuff, like outside of the main prose, and just kind of adds more depth to the world. I thought it was great.
Yeah. The bloodlust of people. And so that's what would happen. I mean, we've been so dissociated with violence and people suffering that it seems like we're disconnected from it all. So it was pretty on point.
I know he is working on something else at the moment, so we have more from him to look forward to.
Yeah.
Nice.
You have another one on your list, Alex?
Yeah, I have Residuum by D.B. Rook. I can't believe I forgot his name then. It's a little sort of space pirate, found family friend sort of book. It starts off with mother and daughter running away from a catastrophe that's happened. And then through hook or by crook, the daughter ends up with this pirate crew. And they go on a bit of an adventure together. And some of the characters in it are brilliant. There's a robot called Tape Deck, who is just my favourite character of all time in a sci-fi novel. And a sort of walking insect called Shadwell, which is a great name for an insect because it's just so weird. But all the names of the crew come from the captain, who was an ancient human archaeologist. So the ship is called the MTV, and Tape Deck comes from ancient human history, as does Shadwell and all the other names of the crew. So that was a nice touch that the captain renames his crew based on artifacts from old Earth. Yeah, it's just a great adventure book. It's a really fun read, and it would really work well as a TV program as well.
Yeah.
If you could write some more, you could have a nice series, a different adventure every week.
DB Rook is one of those authors I've had on my list for a while, but I think I'd really enjoy. I just haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah, I definitely would recommend getting to that one as quickly as possible. That was one of my favorite reads last year. Uh, while we're talking about him, because that was I'd love to have that book started like almost it seemed like it was gonna be more of like this almost dystopian horror space sort of thing. And then when the pirate smuggler crew comes in, it just kind of twists that. It still keeps those elements, but then becomes this like adventure that is just a lot of fun.
Hmm.
And I haven't had the chance to start it yet, but I'm actually hoping to get to this weekend. He just had Red Reckoning come out on um Unearthed Stories, Olivia J. Elliott's and Prowess Games, um, sort of interactive fiction app.
Oh yeah.
And DB Rook, his story just came out on it the other day, and it's a prequel to a direct prequel, I believe, to Callus and Crow. So I'm hoping to get into that in the next couple days.
I actually have Callus and Crow down as possibly my next read.
Yep, I got my copy right there. I've been meaning to get to it soon. So everything I've read from him has been awesome so far. He had the Shadows of the Collegiate short stories that there's one of them I still think about uh what No Hook for the Hood, because it's about this like world renowned executioner. And in my town there's this kind of like abandoned house that is a historical place nearby for because it was the famous executioner's home. And every time I drive past that, it just makes me think of DB's story.
I hope to get to DB's books here soon. They've been on my Kindle for I don't know how long. Just it's been a slow reading year for sure. Unfortunately. So the next one I wanted to mention that one of my favorite trilogies, I think, well, I know it is one of my favorite trilogies, is Kings of Paradise by Richard Nell. It's a trilogy. It's about two brothers, and it's very grim, but it's very, we read things. There's certain stories that are very dark and disturbing, and you just feel oppressed, like this, like something like the second apocalypse. There's the entire way you feel the weight of just the violence and the griminess of everything, and how awful things are. With Kings of Paradise, it's very to the point. It's very just, this is what it is, and it's a different kind of brutality. But there's all the characters are no characters safe. All the characters are flawed in some way. You root for people you probably shouldn't root for. And the second book, there's a twist in that book. Of course, I won't spoil it, but one of my favorite all time books, just because of the reveal and what happens in it, and just the tragedy of it all. But yeah, one of the just a brutal, grim, great fantasy trilogy. So if you are in the mood for something like that, definitely check that out.
On my
One of these days,
list to
I've heard a
come,
lot.
on my list to come is The Hallows by H.R. Tinsley. I do want to get on with that at some point.
Again, like I said, last year was a great year. That I read that one. Like I loved her Vanguard books, but I do think The Hallows is an underdog that more people need to read. That was like as much as I enjoy the Vanguard books, The Hallows is my favorite book from her. And it's unique. It's got awesome characters. Like she writes these crews that stick with you.
I mean, the thing that sold it to me was when she mentioned it had flying nuns in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll bring up, it's my turn now. This is the first book I read last year. What's it called? It's by this one guy, Carpentry in the Elven Forest by Alex French. It's my turn, asshole.
It's on my list too.
Which, yeah, it's, you wrote an amazing story that was so much fun. And just to be able to take a book with the goal of being humorous, but still add so much heart to it and like, create these characters that you really get connected with and you want to see their journey, but you're laughing, you're getting really annoyed at some of those fucking jokes. And you're groaning
Yep.
and you're just, it's a blast the whole way through. And I'm definitely looking forward to reading the next one when it's ready. And if I have to highly recommend anyone, even if you don't, maybe even if you don't think you want something that's more on the humorous side, like, you should check it out, because once you start reading it, you realize how much you need this book.
Yeah, I'm not really much for humor in literature. It usually doesn't hit right for me. Has to be a specific type of humor. And Carpentry definitely scratched that itch for me, because I found myself laughing out loud several times reading the book, and it's this dry, droll, kind of sneaks up on you kind of humor, and it's right up my alley. So definitely knocked it out of the park with that.
I mean, there is some fighting in it. Some
Yeah,
people die.
yeah. Well, it's not all humor. It's not all humor, but the humor that it does have is definitely it's one of those books you just feel good reading, and it kind of makes you
Sometimes
do better.
people die and it's humorous.
It's true.
There was, I'm not going to throw any spoilers out there, but there was one death to do with an arrow and a bomb that just made me chuckle as I wrote it. Thomas probably remembers it. I don't know if you've got that far yet, Steve.
No, I haven't gotten to that yet. So
It made me chuckle when I wrote it, just the way I described it.
all right.
You could
So
definitely tell when you're reading that too, that you, like, it felt like, and I think this is a very important and good thing, you're writing that because you want to and because you're loving it and you're having fun doing it. And I think that really shows.
It was all unplanned as well. I knew the start and I knew the end, and everything else that happens in it, I just made up as I went along. So it was almost indicative of the mood I was in when I started writing it.
yeah, I think there's definitely times you can you read something or watch something or listen to something that is made because of it's what's popular in that moment, or it's what's kind of it's the trend, the genre that's trendy at the time. And there's other times you read something or watch something or listen to something that you could just feel that whoever's making it is doing it because they want to do it. It's because that's what they want to create. So there are times you can definitely feel you can feel the difference between the two sometimes. And yeah, definitely we got that
And of
with
course,
Carpentry.
the whole book was your fault, Steve.
I guess it was the worst thing that I've done, right? But have it in, yeah. It's really neat to see it kind of come to fruition and finally be able to have it sitting here next to me. So it's really neat.
I suppose I should thank you for 2 years of not seeing my partner and squirreling myself away in an office over a keyboard.
Yeah, that too, I guess. Yeah. So the next on my list I wanted to mention is a horror book. It's called Nightmare. It's by Chad Nicholas. I think Chad was 17 or 18 when he wrote this book. He was really young. And it's a story about a nightmare. And I don't know what we've gotten to the point now where if you mention M. Night Shyamalan and the twists at the end, I think everyone's kind of burnt out on that kind of thing. Like, you kind of hear groans from the audience when you mention that. But there was definitely a twist in this book that caught me by surprise. It was well done, and I still remember it today, years later after reading the book. But it is a pretty horrific book, but at the end definitely is worth the journey. And if you're into horror, into twist endings, definitely check out Nightmare by Chad Nicholas.
I haven't read horror in quite a while now. Proper horror. I really should get back into it because I used to love it as a teenager. Worked all the way through Lovecraft and people like Arthur Machen and Brian Lumley,
Yeah, Lonely.
James Herbert. I really should try and get back into it at some point.
And you guys have another item on your list, whether you have read or want to read?
Yeah, I'll go. This is actually the book that I've read this year so far. And it would have probably made my top 10 any year that I've read it or listened to it, but so far it's definitely on there. I, I haven't read much, so anyway, it's a great book. The Wrecking Squad by Nick Snape. And I've seen it said a lot that it's if you're a fan of Firefly, you'll love this book, and that is absolutely true. It's very much, like the crew of like mercenary smugglers sort of people in space on like a junk ship going and salvaging what they can, taking odd jobs. And it's got very much a found family feel to it.
Hmm.
And he has a ton of books in various series out that like I already wanted to check out his other books, and after listening to this audiobook, I know that I have to, and just added probably about 15 books to my TBR because of it.
And now I'm just going to make a note of the Wrecking Squad.
Yeah, for sure. And that is it more sci-fi or is it more
It's sci-fi,
fantasy
yeah.
adventure? Oh, adventure.
He has a dark fantasy series out too. That one's not on audiobook, but it's one that it sounds like it's good. I'm sure it's good. I mean, he's a great writer. So it's definitely one that I want to get to at some point. But the Wrecking Squad, that's the first book in a series. And I think the second book just came out on audiobook too.
Mm.
And I think he is just kind of going through them because the series has been out for a bit now.
Nice. What about you, Alex? Do you have another one on your list of?
There is one I really want to read, and I cannot remember the name of it. So I'm hoping one of you two's heard of it. It's an anthology. It's come out fairly recently, and it's about everything is mushroom related or fungus related.
The Book of Spores.
Yes, that's it. The Book of Spores.
That's Fanfi Addicts anthology. I know.
Yes,
I think
thank you.
DB Rook has a story in it. Adrian Gibson was involved in putting it together. I don't know if he has a story in it or not. I think Tom Bookbeard does.
Tom does. That's the reason I wanted to read it, because I also want to read his Sky Pirate's book when he eventually finishes it.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I do want to catch the Book of Spores because I just find it an intriguing premise that somebody's gone out and written or a group of people have written an anthology all based on fungus.
Yeah, after reading the Entangled Life a couple of years ago, it's fascinating, the complexity of fungus and spores and like, if you guys have heard of the spore that can basically turns an ant into a zombie and it can control them, and it's
Yeah.
wild.
Isn't that the one that last is it The Last of Us? That show
Yeah, The
and
Last
game
of
is
Us.
supposed to be based on?
Yeah, it's crazy. And they can all communicate, and it's wild. They're gonna take over one day. We're worried about each other. We should be worried about the spores. Fungus. That's the real threat. So another one on my list. Speaking of humor, I mentioned I wasn't big on humor in books, but this is one that I enjoy too. Is called River of Thieves by Clayton W. Snyder. It is an over-the-top, ridiculous fantasy story. It is, I mean, very just out there, wild, pokes fun at fantasy, but in a loving way, not in a want to take a dump on fantasy. It's more of just an appreciative way, but it definitely can just gets over the top. It's really funny. It's a great adventure story, and it's hilarious. Another book that if you want something more lighthearted, and there's still violence and murder and death and battles in it, but it's funny. So you have the humor too. So yeah, definitely check that out by Clayton Snyder. He's one of those authors who I think very underrated. I think he's written some great books and he deserves more attention, because I think he definitely has written some books that are worth checking out.
Yeah. I read that one a while ago, and also from him, Cold West
Hmm.
is awesome. Um Fantasy western that starts out more western, and then the fantasy hits and it's just kind of like oh shit, what the fuck's going on here? This And it just gets weirder and weirder and darker and darker. And then Neuralska Groans that he did with Michael R. Fletcher is also great.
It's another one I've had sitting on the shelf for a long time. I haven't gotten to yet. He also wrote The War to End All, the last book of Manifest Illusions with Fletcher. That
I have that waiting. I have not gotten to it yet though.
it is definitely over the top. Another very just starting from Beyond Redemption and then where we end The War to End All. It's quite a journey, but it's definitely it's a finale to remember. It'll stick with you for a while. But another good one.
One thing I've found from doing more writing is you always see online people saying in order to be a good writer, you need to read. But the more writing you do, the less reading you do. Which is why I have only read 3 books this year and only 2 indie books. And yeah, I just find it weird that everybody always says you need to read to be a good author, and then think, when? When am I supposed to read? I'm always writing my book.
Especially if you're trying to hold down a full-time job too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So it's all the upfront costs with editing and cover art and everything else that goes into it. You have to pay for it somehow. So yeah, it's a tough. It's tough. But I'm not sure if people mean you have to read to write. Well, like you have to have read. in the past, or do you have to constantly read because there's only so much time in the day to get what you
There
want to
it
get
is,
done?
yeah. But speaking of cover art, I would like to just give the artist of Carpentry and the Elven Forest cover a shout out. Wonderful artist called Tabitha Marsh from the UK. Yeah, I gave her a brief and she went away, came back with a wireframe, and I said, yeah, that looks good. Went back again 2 weeks later, came back with the cover, and I think she absolutely nailed it pretty much first time. There was a few tiny tweaks on colours. So if any indie authors out there are looking for somebody who will do book covers, she charges less for indie authors because she knows that indie authors have to pay for it themselves, and she's brilliant.
Hmm. Is there a specific type of genre that she kind of specializes in, or is it pretty much any genre?
Looking at her portfolio, I think most of it looks like it's fantasy.
It's hard
And it's
finding
all,
author or artist.
yeah, it's also quite cartoony as well, which really fit in with the feel of Carpentry.
Yeah, I think it matches your book perfectly. It like you got it's a great cover.
I've already got the idea for the next one that
Yeah.
I'm going to come up with, which is for Trolls and Tarot, which is very much like a Raymond Chandler-esque type feel to it. So there's going to be a picture of Thomas the Troll with a fedora and a big overcoat on, standing on a street
Nice.
corner under a light.
That's cool. It does seem like the trend in the book world is veering more towards kind of more kind of colorful and cartoony type of, especially in the, I have to bring it up, the kind of the romance, uh, the romance genre is, it's very, all of it seems very colorful and bright, and they almost look like kids books, some of the designs. So it seems like that's kind of where the tides are trending, is more colorful and a little bit more, I don't say lighthearted, but a little bit more cartoony than more realistic. Like, you don't see Fabio on the cover of romance books anymore. They look like kids books now, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, I've seen some romance books that are basically almost like Disney cartoons on the front, especially romantasy. So
Yeah.
you've got a sort of like an elf and a dragon or something making moon eyes at each other, and they're both drawn like they've come straight out of a sort of Disney animation.
Yeah, it's a little disturbing that they market it. It's almost like they're trying to market to the younger audience, and it's some of it is like dark romance, off the wall stuff. So
Or they're marketing it to the right people, and we've just got really old.
maybe,
I
yeah,
I
that's
I
also a
think there's
possibility.
probably a certain amount of it that's um marketing to a nostalgia crowd. Like there's a lot of trends I recognize nowadays are definitely appealing to like the things that were more popular when I was younger. That that is definitely like, I mean, just think about like all like the runs of Star Wars stuff and everything like that. It's trying to remind you of like what people might look at as their golden years and stuff like that. That just appeals to people. So like marketing to Disney adults.
Don't get me started on Disney adults. that's a whole nother that's a whole nother episode. That's a yeah. But yeah, so I do think, and also I think I remember 4 or 5 years ago, the big topic of conversation was how grimdark everything was, how dark a lot of the fantasy books were. And I feel like I feel like it's evening out more now. There's a lot more kind of lighthearted, more fun, cozy fantasy. There's a mix now, and it's not so one sided as it was several years ago.
I don't know. I think romantasy is taking over the world at the moment.
Yeah.
It's I mean, I don't know if I've got the algorithm wrong on my Threads account, but every other author on there seems to be a romantasy author.
Yeah. It's
I still don't know what a Threads is.
it's the meta version of it's like a Twitter style platform, right?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
basically Facebook's version of Twitter,
Okay.
but less scary than Twitter.
I forgot whose turn it was. Who's up next for another
I
book recommendation?
I got another one if you want. I haven't finished this one yet. This is the book I'm currently reading, but so far it's excellent. Bones Before Fortune by Keith DeRoker. And this is like, there's always the arguments about what is and isn't grimdark. And I don't know the answer to that. I don't really care. I just know that a lot of books I like are considered grimdark. But when it comes to that, this is the sort of book I'm looking for. Like, this is right up my alley, where it's not so much just like gruesome for the sake of shock value, or like just trying to be like over the top and just like get reactions. It's just gritty and filthy, but purposefully in like in a way that's like not just trying to be like not trying to get a reaction out of people or have anyone be like, oh, that looks too much. It's just so far a great story of kind of gray morality mercenaries kind of just doing a job trying to survive in the thick of it.
Hmm.
And that's the sort of stuff that I usually go to right away. Like, I love that.
Nice. I think we can all agree that no one knows what grimdark is, and no one has the same opinion. It's one of those kind of just with things that are never going to be resolved, but that definitely sounds right up my alley. Going on the list for sure.
Yeah. And I know he's working on the second book currently, but seems like I'm about halfway through this one right now, maybe a little bit less. And I already know I'm going to want to pick up the next one when it's available.
That's a good sign.
It's sort of the best feedback you can ever give when you're reading a series, isn't it? The only thing I need to say about this series is I'm going to pick the next one up.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Definitely. I guess I'll mention another one. I have a few more on my list. The next one I want to mention is called The Rift Cycle. The first book is Edge of the Breach. This is by Halo Scott. This is kind of a very dark Star Wars inspired story. It's a futuristic sci-fi fantasy story about when you're born into different seasons, and you possess certain powers depending on when you're born. And you live in this world has a big breach in the sky where another civilization has breached the sky, and this is a story about I want to say it's a disturbing romance story, but it is bloody and violent and funny and just way over the top. And it goes from being just overly violent and overly, just crazy and people turn into confetti. It's that kind of thing where it's very gruesome. But the last book really got to me, and this is one of those series that by the end of it, the last book really got under my skin in a good way. But it's one of those that I remember even years later after reading it. But if you want something science fiction, fantasy, a little bit of horror, it's also has some crime elements integrated in it. But it's a great series for anyone wanting something just different and off the wall and bloody and violent and over the top, and also has some funny moments in it too, and a really twisted romance to boot.
Did it get under your skin because of connection to the characters?
That's a good question. Well, I think because the journey that you take with the characters, and at the end, there's almost this way that the characters connect with you in a way. I don't want to give too much away, but it's the what the characters were discussing and how the characters felt at the time kind of speak to you. It's not a fourth wall breaking moment, but it feels like the characters are speaking to the reader in some points that kind of really got to me. I was surprised that it had those kind of emotions at the end after the kind of story it is, but kind of makes a full circle turn at the end that, really, that last book really got under my skin, but in a good way.
That's what you want, really, isn't it? A book that really sticks with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember reading both Lord of the Rings and Watership Down as a child, and those two have still stuck with me to this day. I still keep going back to them both.
Hmm. And Thomas, you just had to step away, but are there any books that you've read that have gotten under your skin in a kind of in a good way, like an emotional way?
There's been a lot, actually. Actually, one of the it's one thing that always sticks with me. I love a book that can make me tear up a little bit, and I already mentioned it. Fraser's book, Yes Tomorrow, definitely choked me up a little bit when I was reading that one. And so, I feel like there's certain things, it's family elements, maybe, or like found family elements can get me. Another one, I think maybe the Dragon Spirits books by L.L. McCrae. Like those, the third one came out, and it just came out on audiobook, and R.J. Bailey narrates them. And I haven't gotten to the third one yet. I did just order the audiobook for when it comes out, I think at the end of the month. But those first two books, just from like the first line of the first book, I was like, oh, this book is going to stick with me. Like, I love this series, and still, that is how I feel about it. And there's definitely points that really hits you, and she's an amazing author. I love those books. They have quickly become all-time favorites of mine.
Yes. Any more on your list, Alex?
No, I've run out now.
Okay. What about you, Thomas? Any more on your list?
I feel like I should mention, because one of my favorite indie books that I've read, that was my top in my top 10 last year, would be Dance With Me from Olivia J. Elliott. But I thought that I should bring her up, especially because I started her most recent book, The Omens of War, and I haven't finished it yet. I actually kind of set it aside for a little bit because it's a great book so far, but most of my reading time has been like sitting in my truck on a 15-minute break at work or something like that. And this book just feels like it deserves more. So I've been reading it on my phone, and that also wasn't good enough. So I think the paperback is supposed to show up in the mail today. And it's a book that I want to save for when I can actually just sit down and try to dedicate a couple hours to reading. But everything I've read of hers has been great so far, so I'm really looking forward to getting into it again.
Nice. More about Dance with Me is another one that's been on my shelf for a while, waiting to be read. They're piling up.
They always do.
They always do. Another one I wanted to mention is a book called Seraphina's Lament. This is by Sarah Chorn. Sarah is I'm not sure if she's still active as an editor, but she's edited lots of books that everyone's probably read. They're readers, but I've read lots of dark stories. I've read violent stories. There's a scene in Seraphina's Lament that made me put the book down and walk away because it was just, it got to me a lot in a bad way, but also a good way. And I don't think that's ever happened before. I've read some pretty graphic stuff, and it was not so much that it was graphic, the scene that made me put the book down, but it was just the emotional impact of what happens to a certain character that I was like, I need a break. I need to put the book down and walk away for a minute. And that's never happened to me before, and it hasn't happened since. But a great dark fantasy story about some people living in this world of this empire that is, rations food, and it's very oppressive. A great story, really dark, emotional, fantastic fantasy book. If you're looking for something fantasy with some, some tragedy and some bite, definitely check out Seraphina's Lament by Sarah Chorn.
See, now my list of books is getting bigger and bigger that I have to read.
Yeah.
Because these all sound really good.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about her books, that she's definitely been on the TBR for a while now.
Do you have any more on your list, Thomas?
Yeah, I should bring up one Mr. AJ Retker, who has written, why am I suddenly having a blank on the names? Season of Kings and Season of Vengeance. The first two books in his trilogy. And I think the second one just came out last year, I believe. And I think the best way to describe his books would be metal as fantasy.
Yes.
I'm gonna go with that.
I think you'd like that.
Yeah. They're excellent books. I loved both of them, and they are definitely brutal at times, in your face, grimdark. And yeah, I just think they're fucking metal.
Or his Oathbreaker series was metal, definitely.
I still have to read. I have Oathbreaker. I haven't read it yet, but I have to get to that one.
Yeah, when he was releasing his first book, he had a giveaway, I think, or somewhere, and I ended up winning a signed copy of it. So it's always been had a special place in my heart because of that. But a couple more I want to mention, a couple more on my list. Another one that I wanted to shine some light on is another book that can be described as metal is The Hellborn King by Christopher G. Brenning, the series that he has. Another book that it reads like a movie. It reads very. It feels like it's fast. It feels very visual. It's really smells flows smoothly. It's I guess you could call it a dark fantasy grimdark story, and it is brutal. There's lots of violence and death and destruction and tragedy, and the characters suffer. But it's a great series, and he gets these books out pretty quick. I think he's on I forget what book he's on now. I think one of his books, the latest in the series, just got released. But it's one of those series that I hope to reread when it's done, or as the books are released, when I have time to read anything at all. But yeah, definitely if you are into fantasy, kind of combat, and characters being punished for every mistake they make, The Hellborn King is definitely a book to check out. Any more on your list, Thomas? Or
yeah, I could definitely. I will continue to pull from last year because that's when I was reading. Hall of Bones by Tim Hardy.
yes,
Norse-inspired fantasy that I need to get to the rest of the series, and I definitely plan to, and then some. He has a lot of books, and this epic scope of this very, very in-depth world. His world building is amazing. The magic system, like everything, as you're reading this first book, and it gradually unfolds and just becomes this kind of all-encompassing world, and it just gets better and better as you go. And that's just the first book of I believe it's I want to say a 5-book series, and then he has other stories set in the same world. So there is a lot to get lost in with that I need to get on the rest of it soon.
yeah, it's a series that I read the first book and I enjoyed it. I just haven't read the rest of the series yet. But the series just finished up, I believe, last year or so.
Yeah,
Those of you who don't jump into a series until it's finished, this one's done. So,
and don't do that.
yeah, don't do that, because if you don't check it out, then there won't be a series a lot of times. So if you don't buy the books and support it, then the series won't exist at all. So, and you'll never find out if you'd have liked it or hated it. So go support first books. Another horror book, probably one of my favorite books, and one of the most just gets under your skin in a disturbing kind of way. Probably one of the best horror books I've ever read. It's called Negative Space by B.R. Yeager. It is this cosmic horror. Just it's about a bunch of kids doing shitty things as kids do, and it's twisted and it's haunting and disturbing, and it's just it's awful, but in the best way. So but it's definitely not for the lighthearted. If there are certain things that make you kind of uncomfortable with everything that you can imagine is in this book. Very, very disturbing, just awful, but in the best way. I read it again last year, maybe last year, but it is definitely a book you can reread and catch things that you missed. There's all sorts of symbolic symbols and messaging in the story that you won't catch the first time. You'll catch it the second or third time. Lots of little details sprinkled in. It's a great book. If you're into cosmic horror, it's definitely a book to check out. Thomas, you have any more on your list, or is your chamber empty too?
This is one that I actually have not gotten around to writing a review about yet. There's a handful of those. Storytellers by Bjorn Larson. And this is less on the fantasy side, but it's a great story, and it takes place in Iceland, and it kind of brings in like it has a very apt name because there's times where it kind of just feels like you're sitting around a fire and someone's telling you this story. And there is that element where it's like multiple stories being told in one that all kind of come together. And it starts out with this guy that brings in a man from the snow who's injured and nurses him back to health, but doesn't really want to deal with it. And then I don't want to say more than that because as all of these elements of the different stories unfold and intertwine, it's very interesting.
Hmm.
But it's a great book. Bjorn Larson also wrote one of the short stories in The Anatomy of Fear. That was a short story. I think last time I was on here, I brought up that short story. That was one of those stories that just really hits you, and I had to like take a minute before I went on with the anthology after that one because he has a way of writing that just kind of resonates with you. Like I feel like at points you start identifying with characters, but then also wondering if you should be identifying with those characters. And kind of, he has stories that can be very like introspective in a way, and it's excellent.
Hmm.
I do actually have one more that I'd completely forgotten about.
Yeah.
Which is Our Vitreous Wound, which I bought quite a long time ago now by Haldane B. Doyle. And it's set in a sort of a future world. And it's the same story about somebody, but told firstly from his point of view, and then from the point of view of 3 other people. So it's sort of 4 stories in one.
Hmm.
And I've been meaning to get round to reading it for about 3 years now, and I've never actually managed it.
I think we can all relate to that.
Yeah.
Nice. I love stories that have different perspectives and tell the same story from different angles and how different people interpret things that happen or how they see things or perceive things. I've always loved that kind of story.
There was one I read a long, long time ago, which was a traditionally published book called An Instance of Finger Post. And that was the same story told from 4 different points of view and there was a murder investigation as well as treating somebody's eye for an infection, and the first ever blood transfusion was in there as well. So all of these things happening, being told from 4 different points of view. So it's an interesting way of doing it, and when it works really well.
I think the last one on my list that I have here is another person will recommend. We will remember or recognize the name from. My brain will work. Is The Truth of Crowns. This is by Carl D. Albert. It's an epic fantasy story. It's very, I like to describe this as very Shakespearean in the tragedy category. That it's this. There's a lot of world building that takes place. It's definitely setting up to be a long, sprawling fantasy story, and it does take a little bit to kind of get you into the world. There's lots of setup in the first 100 pages or so, but once the story gets going, there's a romance. There's lots of betrayal. There's tragedy. There's characters suffer. It's a great book, and looking forward to seeing what book 2 has in store for us. But it's definitely a chunker. So if you're into long fantasy stories, with tragedy, violence, all the great stuff we've talked about. The Truth of Crowns, go check it out. It's definitely going to be a series to keep an eye on.
That's another one that I've been meaning to get to.
I read a short story by Carl that it's one that hasn't been released, at least not as far as I'm aware. And it really sucks you into the storyline. There was this knight who had suffered from a disease but was now cured. But it was a disease that was known to be highly contagious, and the people of his homeland didn't think there was a cure for it. He'd basically come back to his homeland. The suspicion they treated him with and the ostracization. It was a really, really good short story.
Nice. And Thomas, I think you mentioned you had some other projects you wanted to mention.
Oh yeah, I just figured. I know before you all were doing these and talking about just indie things in general rather than just books. So I thought I'd toss out a couple bands and stuff too. One of the most recent bands I've got into pretty big, picked up a couple tapes from them on their Bandcamp page, and they sent me some free beer koozies with them.
Nice.
And that is Bog Wizard, who is D&D influenced, nerdy, heavy, doomy, sludgy stoner metal. And they're fucking awesome. And on top of just being fucking awesome, I reached out to them to see if I could use one of their songs as the intro into the audio on the zine cassette tape that I'm having come out. And they were like, yeah, of course, go ahead. So that's also cool.
That's super cool.
A couple other bands I've been listening to a lot lately, mostly on the metal side. Castle Rat, which unfortunately I missed around here. They played in the town where I work, I think over the summer, but it was on a work night and I live 40 miles away and have to get up at 5 a.m. So I missed the show and I regret it. But they are awesome fantasy metal, like epic fantasy metal with a stage show and everything. And all their videos are very, very much themed in the same way. And I highly recommend checking them out. And the last band I'll mention is, again, we've already mentioned his books, but DB Rooks, drums for Terminal Sun, Terminal Sun, who, if you're into, I feel like they have a very kind of, you can hear influence from At the Gates, Sepultura, that sort of stuff, and they're fucking awesome.
Nice. I love Bandcamp.
I like it more when I have money.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's a dangerous place.
I've been rebuilding my cassette tape collection, which has been nice. It's not anything like it used to be because I had a milk crate of like 300 to 400 cassette tapes. A lot of them were just like random demos that I got back when I used to tape trade. And when I was living with my brother, his cat pissed on all of them.
Oh.
And now I have about 20 that weren't in that crate that I still have. Like I just dug through a box and found a bunch of my tapes, like Billy Bragg and Beastie Boys, Check Your Head, and all these old tapes that I've managed to hang on to for a long time. But I'm starting to build that up with new bands now, and kind of like it.
Right on. That's cool. Cassettes are making a comeback. That's what I hear.
They're great because they're durable.
Mm-hmm.
All you need is a pencil to fix them. Well, yeah, I mean, That's a
Durable
good
to a
point.
point.
Yeah.
I mean, would a CD survive a puddle of cat piss?
I don't know. Maybe. Depends on what you clean it with, if you scratch the CD or not. And how long
Yeah.
it sits on there. Yeah. Might ruin it. Yeah, probably ruin it.
I suppose this shouldn't
Somewhere,
be something we have to consider.
Yeah.
somewhere I've still got an original Alice Cooper Killers on tape. First release of it from 1971. I've got no idea how I acquired it.
Thomas is digging into his collection.
I've got 5.
Yeah. I've got 5 of those.
No, they're not. They're not alphabetized. I got the record,
Oh, nice.
but I got to organize my shit some point.
One of these days.
Yeah.
Was there any other projects you wanted to mention, Thomas, or was that all on your list?
If you guys want, I can mention 2 games I've played recently that are indie games that are a lot of fun.
Yeah.
For video games on the computer, I got Scald Against the Black Priory, which is an old school kind of pixel art RPG that I've only kind of gotten started on it. Like, I thought I've been playing it for a while, but apparently just kind of breaking the surface. I was playing for a while at first and then realized that was just a tutorial. So it seems like it's going to be a pretty big open world sort of like top down game that is very interesting so far. It kind of, I don't know too much about games from the era that it probably takes most of its influence from, because I just didn't have I didn't have a computer back then probably. But it's like a top down pixel art where very D&D inspired, like you have your skills and you roll dice to try to achieve certain things, kind of similar to like the new Baldur's Gate and stuff like that. But that's been a lot of fun so far. And I've recently gotten into these sort of like solo tabletop games and tabletop RPGs and stuff like that. And I've been playing Tin Helm and Tin Realm, which are Tin Helm is the first game, and then like Tin Realm is the sequel, where it's kind of like they come in these little mint tins, and you just have like a couple different decks of cards and dice and markers, and it's like a solo dungeon crawl that you could play in just like 15 to 30 minutes, and kind of has like a nice D&D sort of feel to it, but something you could just play to kill some time for fun on your own, and with some amazing artwork too. And that's from
really cool.
Jason Glover of Grey Gnome Games.
I'm gonna check those out. That sounds really fun. Nice. But yeah, look, quite a bit on our lists. But if you are listening and you have completely lost track of all the things we've talked about, don't worry. I'll have a blog post. I'll have a link to a blog post down below. But that will link everything that we've discussed, and with links to where you can find all these different books and games and bands to check out and make your wallet a little bit lighter. So,
But in a good way.
in a good way.
Yeah.
But you'll feel better and know that you're getting lots of great stories. And great
Get some
experiences.
cool shit and support good people.
That's right. So go check it out. But yeah, it's fun to be back doing Spotlight and shining a light on books and projects that may not otherwise get attention. So it's really nice to be back. So Thomas, where can people find you?
They can find me on either Linktree or Ko-fi would be the best spots. Either of those are ko-fi.com/Thomas J. Devens, all one word. And that will I'll also have links for everything there. So that's the best spot to go. And you could buy my books directly from me there without dealing with any corporate middlemen, except for the credit card companies, but I can't help that.
You can't
Damned
get
if you
rid of
do,
all
damned
of
if you don't.
them. Yeah.
Send me an envelope with a couple dollars hidden in it in the mail.
What about you, Alex? Where can people find you?
I'm on most social media as a Frog in Time. I'm also available as a Frog in Time on pagechewing.com. And yeah, my books are on Amazon because I have to deal with middlemen.
Yeah. One of those sometimes a necessary evil.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos has his hands in all of our pockets. Pulling the strings. If you'd like to be featured in a future episode of Spotlight Showing, drop by the forum and let us know about what you're working on or what you'd like to promote. Be happy to give it a mention. So thanks again, Alex and Thomas, for hanging out and just promoting good stuff.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So until next time, we'll talk to everyone very soon.